One more way to combine multiple maps is by using a technique called falloff. Now, falloff is a very, very good technique. It's probably one of the more underestimated maps in Max. And what falloff does is it allows you to combine maps based upon things such as the camera distance and the angle of view of an object. And it's a really great way to get very rich textures. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the basics about how to use it, and I'll give you some ideas as to where you can go with it. It's a very, very complete sort of tool here. But let's open up a file from our desktop. Exercise files, materials, falloff maps. Now, this particular file doesn't have any falloff maps, but we're going to be adding those. It's basically just a simple hose object, but I chose this because it has a lot of undulations and a lot of angles of view, so you can see what's going on with falloff maps fairly easily. We also have some lights on it, nothing all that fancy. So I'm going to go over to my materials editor, and normally when you apply a material, let's say, for example, we take a color. Let's say we make this yellow, or kind of a gold, maybe. If you look at this, when it renders, what's happening is this yellow is going basically it just grays out. It goes to kind of like a grayish yellow. Now, if you know how bitmaps work, basically what happens is that when you go from white to gray or white to black, you're really only going through 256 different shades of color. So even going from, bright yellow to even, black or dark yellow, you're going through probably even less than 256 colors. So you're not really getting a richness of color. Now, falloff can help you change that by just changing the color of the gray and so on and so forth. So what we can do here is we can just put a map in there, falloff. Now watch what this does. It creates a black and a white as default. So what we have here is we have a couple of different ways of doing falloff. The default is perpendicular parallel, which is what we'll use right now. And what perpendicular parallel does is those vertices facing the camera are black, and those going away from the camera are white. Well, we can change that. So we want the stuff facing the camera to be that kind of goldish color we have. And the ones going away, instead of making them gold, let's make them kind of almost like a reddish kind of color. Now notice how much richer. I can even make it a little bit darker. But even going, just a little bit further in the color spectrum just gives it so much more of a rich texture. I'm just going to take another one here and just put this in with just like the kind of that regular gold color. So if we have, just comparing these two, you notice how this is just so much richer, because what's happening is as it goes towards the edge of the thing and as it goes towards shadow, essentially, it's getting a different color. So what you're doing is you're getting a much richer palette of color. It's going through a much higher gradation of colors. Now, falloff can be used for a lot more than this. This is just kind of like the first example. One thing you can use falloff for, I'm going to go back to this material. In fact, I'm going to create an even wackier material here so you can kind of see even more intensely what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and render this. So now you can see it's actually fading towards blue as the angle goes away from the camera. Now there's a number of different ways to use falloff. We have what's called towards and away, which what we had before was perpendicular and parallel. Let me describe that. So as the faces go towards 90 degrees, they go towards the second color. So when it's 90 degrees, it's blue. When it's flat on or 0 degrees from the camera, it's gold. Towards and away basically just increases that. So when it's 180 degrees away from the camera, then it goes to blue. So it's just a much softer kind of gradation. We also have what's called Fresnel. If anybody's familiar with optics, it's similar to a Fresnel lens. And what this is for is it's really based upon the index of refraction of the object. Now, normally you probably wouldn't use Fresnel for color, but it's really good when you use it with transparencies. So as the object curves, it becomes a little bit less transparent. So if we put this on the transparency of this, for example, it would, as it curves away and as it gets more refractive, it gets less transparent. Another one is called shadow and light. And what that does is, as you can see, anything that's lit is blue, anything that's not lit is yellow. Okay, so it almost kind of reverses that. So, for example, if I rendered this as shadow and light, you notice that I can actually swap those to give me kind of more of the same thing. But this is really great for like iridescence and for things that change color. So if you have like maybe a satin or something like that, it's great for things that change color as the light changes. It's really good for transparencies and also for reflections because you can really change things according to how just the lights are. So as it comes into and out of a light, things will change. And the final one is called distance blend. Now what that is, we're going to do another exercise on this in the next one. But what that is that the actual physical distance from the camera determines how it fades between these two maps. Okay, I'm going to go back to perpendicular and parallel. Now if you want, and I'm going to swap these again here. Now again, if you want, you can actually make it, you can put maps into here. Let's say, for example, I just wanted to put something very simple like, for example, tiles. You can see how the tiles kind of tend to fade away as it goes parallel. You can do it with any sort of object here or any sort of map. I do like working with color here in the tutorial because it really does show you how it works technically. Now the other great thing for fall off is translucency. You can really just make your translucencies pop by using a simple fall off. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this map. We're going to start from scratch. So I'm going to click None. And now we have just our standard yellow object. And I'm going to change the shader type to a translucent shader. Now I've shown you a little bit about this before. And so, for example, we do this. We have kind of a very translucent sort of object, but it's not translucent. It's not invisible. Well, this is where a fall-off map can come in very handy. So what I can do is in the opacity of this map, either here or here, there's two places. So in opacity, I put a fall-off map. Now what happens is, now I can render this. And now I've got real translucency. This is actually, when you look at it straight on, it's transparent. But when you look at it from the side, it's opaque, which gives you a very good sense of translucency. And here's where I can put in stuff like Fresnel, that sort of thing. Now that's not going to show up here, but that gives you a little bit more of an example as to how that works. Now doesn't that look cool? Now the one thing though is if it is transparent, you are going to have to see the opposite side, which is what we're not getting here. So I'm going to go up to the top of the map, go up to the material here, and we're going to make this two-sided so you can actually see the opposite side. Now that's a very good kind of translucency thing. That's great for like, if you want to do like cells in a body or something like that. It's a really cool effect. And it's very simple to do, really. It's just a translucent shader and a little bit of fall-off. Now, fall-off can be used also in the opposite way. I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to do reset. And I'm just going to create a simple sphere. Go back into my material editor. I'm going to give this a color here. And now on opacity for this just basic blend shader, I'm going to put another fall-off map. Again, I'm going to do perpendicular and parallel, but instead I'm going to swap it so that it's black at the other side. I'm going to swap these. So now what you get is you get it going, instead of being transparent when you look straight at it, it's transparent on the edges. Now this is great because what it can do is give you a real kind of a soft sort of edge. It's almost like a subdivision surface kind of scattering effect. And what it does is it tends to just fade out the edges just a little bit. It works really good if you put it on an Oren-Nayar blend instead of just a regular blend. I put that up there. There we go. Oren-Nayar blend. You might even be able to see it better if I take the environment here and make that white. So you can see how it just totally fades out at the edges. Again, it's dependent upon angle of view. So as the opacity map gets further away from the camera, or as the surface curves away from the camera, it gets more transparent. And so you get a really nice soft effect. So to sum up, fall-off can be used for a variety of things. Go ahead and try and use FalloffMaps when you can, because it really gives you a much richer texture. Now, in the next lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about distance fall-off and how you can use that.